Thank you for joining us today for this little chat around employer branding and how impactful it can be for your brand. So a lot of the time, recruiters kind of struggle with employer branding. They don't really know where they should start. They don't really know what they should not do. So it's a bit of a do's and don'ts today we're going to offer to you as well. So today we have Reda, Joanna, Carolina, and Gonzalo. So I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, starting with Joanna.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you for the invitation, Reda and Samantha, for being here. I'm really happy for this opportunity. My name is Joanna. I'm Portuguese. I have more than 15, 16 now years of professional experience. I lived in the past some years in France and also went quite a few times to Brazil. So I have a mix of this, let's say, both cultures while being Portuguese. I did all my studies about tourism management, and the link with employer branding is to overcome expectations and work in service and meet the expectations of others. So this time it's not tourists, but it's talent. So after 13 years working in tourism management, in sales, marketing, digital marketing, social media, e-commerce, I moved and did a slightly career change to employer branding. So I use all the skills and knowledge that I had for marketing, for clients, and convey that to talent. So for 3 years now, I work 100% in employer branding dedicated to talent. Okay, so that's my passion, and that's where I will stay and work for the next years, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks, Joanna, for being with us today. Next up is Carolina.
Hello, all, dear all. Thank you so much for being here. And Joanna Gonçalo, it's a great pleasure to be surrounded by you. Samantha Reda, you already know. Thank you for the opportunity. I think this, regarding about myself, what can I share? I love humans. I love human race. I truly do. And I think for the last 12 years, I've been more focused on translating sustainability into business and reducing inequalities. And that have been my main two axes. Working as a co-founder and leading the organization Sapana for 8 years, and afterwards working in a multinational of human resources. And now this month, January, sorry, not February, launched a company that aims to transform each company to create more positive impact. But basically, I would say that my main focus here today with you guys, with all of you that are there during our lunchtime here based in Portugal, thank you so much for being there. And I think the things that I would like to launch and to invite you to think is asking questions, because all of us, we do not have the answers. And the second thing is trying to make the connection between what we are living now, what is coming next, and what is so relevant to look and to zoom in each individual.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Thank you for being with us today. And we have Gonzalo.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. And thanks a lot also for the invitation for this panel. It's a really great panel. I think I will learn a lot from it. So hopefully you also will learn a lot. A little bit about me. I work for the last 7 years in the recruitment area. I'm like the cliche in human resources, so I love to work with people. And I believe that a group of people together can do much more than a single individual. That's why I love so much working on recruitment and also employer branding, because without a good employer branding, it's really hard to attract good people for any company. And that's why I work in the topic. So I am the last 4 years working for Mercedes-Benz IO, and I have a split role between recruitment and also employer branding. And those two roles lives really together. And that's why I'm in this panel. And I hope that you also can make questions in order to know more, not only about employer branding, but the impacts that employer branding has in the companies and also in the roles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Thank you for being with us today. Very shortly, I'm going to introduce myself like Samantha. I work at Team Taylor together with Reda. I'm a bit of an employer branding nerd. I work with global clients, but I will let Reda introduce herself and what Team Taylor does, basically.
Yes, okay, but just very briefly, okay, let's keep it very personal. So first of all, yes, I am Reda. I am not Portuguese. I wish I could host this webinar in Portuguese, but what matters is that I have lived in Portugal for almost 6 years. So hence my strong feelings towards cafezinho. So I envy all of you guys who's enjoying one now. And yeah, I'm an international business developer here at Team Taylor. Just briefly put, it's an HR tech scale up. So we help companies enhance their employer branding and define their application tracking journey for candidates and so on. We will explore that further, but just a few more details about myself. I usually enjoy saying that, look, you can keep a girl away from adventures, but the adventure lives in the girl. I am the one. So in the past, I made some really sharp turns in my career, so to speak. So from business development for black toilet paper all the way to data science and AI. And then eventually you can picture the vastness of a change when you get to move from Portugal to Sweden. And all of this is recent. It happened 2 seconds before the pandemic hit us hard. So I hope to share a bit more about what it feels like to change your career when there is a pandemic, what recruitment looks like during a pandemic, and so on. And just likewise, I geek out on employer branding big time.
Thank you, Nada. And you mentioned something that we're all in the midst of, is the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, we had so many questions already from people reaching out to Team Taylor about what is employer branding? Why are you working with employer branding? How is that relevant to us? And why should we invest in employer branding? And now it's even more of a tricky question because there is a pandemic, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, because a lot of recruiters are thinking, but how am I going to keep up with employer branding? Is it even relevant today? How is recruitment going to look like in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, at the end of the year? So guys, what I want to ask you is to share with the attendees what employer branding is and what it is not. And again, we're all very real in this panel. We're not giving you textbook answers, but we're sharing experiences. Hopefully it can help everyone who's attending. Joanna, maybe, or Gonzalo?
Okay, so Gonzalo, do you want to start or shall I start?
Ladies first.
Go ahead.
Ladies first, I knew.
I was
Okay.
certain Gonzalo was gonna say it.
I have to do the question. We are inclusive here. So I think employer branding is the way companies communicate and are perceived externally and internally. Okay, so this can be perceived and in different ways by different people, depending on who is talking and who is deciding, taking decisions. But I think concerning your question about the pandemic, what is the bigger difference between employer branding before and now is that the companies and us, human beings, as Carolina said, we are all suffering and adapting to this new way of unprecedented changes, and we don't know where it ends, we don't know how it changes, we don't know how long the impacts will be. So the employer branding is still really relevant because our companies are changing a little bit. Maybe they are testing different ways of relating to others, not only candidates, in attraction to the employees. And we need to translate this new me as a company also to people. Otherwise, they will get the image of the company 1 or 2 or 3 years ago that may be already different from this year. So for me, employer branding is still really relevant first in terms of communication, because the company employee value proposition or some actions and benefits and so on are maybe different now from last year. One. The second thing is also that we need to empower and support more and more our people. And this pandemic really reveals a fragile human side of all of us: decision makers, leaders, normal employees, candidates, people who need to leave their jobs, okay, and they don't want to, of course. So it also pushes us to think more as person, as people, and to have more human-centric decisions, okay? So it's interesting to see how it's a little bit less about communication, but it's a little bit more about how we feel and how we can support each other as employees or as candidates and so on.
Thank you for this. It's a very, very good point, Joanna. Gonzalo, would you like to add something?
Yeah, maybe just add 1 or 2 points here. I completely agree with Joanna. I think employer branding, it's the image that not only external people sees the company, but also internal people. And for me, in this pandemic, the internal people, so the people that we have in-house, it's much more important than attracting people to the company. Why? Because most of the companies decrease their recruitment efforts, and they really needed to focus on internal people. Why? Because they might leave, and because they are really in a different context they were. So our efforts at Mercedes-Benz IO, and I think most of the companies that I speak with, it's really on the retention and also to take care of the people that we have, because if we don't do it, one day later they will leave the company and they will speak bad things about the company. But if we are with them in bad times, and this is not a good time for anyone, the people will value that. And our response to that was really great, because since the first day that we increased the communication, we spoke more with people, we tried to give more benefits when we could. So really being there and maybe just have a 30 minutes call with some people, it's enough to understand the pains, understand the context, and also help them a little bit. And people can say, oh, that is not employer branding. That is employer branding in my perspective, because employer branding is about people and not only the employer itself, because the companies are made of people. And if we don't have people to work and to build more products, we won't have anything to sell. So that's why I think those topics are really, really related.
Samantha, if I may, can I add something?
Absolutely.
I think Joanna and Gonçalo, they touch two topics that I would love to add on. One of it is uncertainty. So basically, all of us, we are living in an era, and guys, this is not new. Huh? The thing is, it's new for our decision makers. And that's really important, because we have to deconstruct what were the typical hierarchy models. That being said, what I'm trying to share is, when we are talking about decision makers, normally what makes you a decision maker, besides seniority, besides your degrees or whatever, let's translate it into two things: wisdom / knowledge. And the second one is experience. And how much experience do you have? Suddenly, any of us, we have an experience, for example, with a COVID-19. It was a black swan on the 13th of March for us, but nowadays is a fact. So we know already. I'm not saying we know future, but we know what we are living. So this lockdown is not new anymore. The thing is, as the time goes by and the change of procedures is so normally slow, it takes time for people to realize that if you do not walk the talk, employer branding becomes makeup, like my lipstick. And if you have the possibility of really leaving your employees and creating the foundations for your employees become your ambassadors, you are doing a very well done and good work. The thing is, for that to happen, you cannot start, I would say you can, but it's not a good way. So it's a sandwich model. So you have the ability of having external communication, you share the experience, of course, and you have to have a good brand, and with the years you will have reputation. That's our hope, all of us. But guys, we are talking about Deloitte and Mercedes-Benz. I don't need our team teller. So I'm not going to talk about my tiny nano scale company. So we are talking about these two big ones. When we are talking about those two big ones, what we are saying is reputation you have, good or bad reputation you have. Second, you have another thing. You have the possibility of creating from the ground, creating from scratch. And I think that openness to creating from scratch something, it's a huge opportunity, but as well, as Joanna said, amplifies your vulnerabilities. And that's quite challenging, I would say.
Carolina, I'm just quick to unmute myself because you just shared some very good thoughts. I would like to add some more food for thought to this table, okay? And perhaps to slightly disagree with you that size is irrelevant. So the size of your company or the size of Team Taylor, Deloitte, or Mercedes, it is absolutely irrelevant. And I'll just mention what you said during the introduction, okay? We are having a very much like human to human conversation. So at the end of the day, employer branding is designed for, let's say, future candidates, right? People who will join your company. And at the very end of the day, all of us are candidates. Doesn't matter. We might be very happy where we are today. Well, we might be thinking of some change, but that doesn't quite matter, okay? What we want is to face companies that are genuine, that they share transparency. We spoke about it in the past, right? Transparency is the new luxury. And companies of any size should be first very truthful to themselves when they share about employer branding. So maybe just to add my personal perspective on employer branding and what it is to me, it really is about being genuine, honest, and also able to showcase it. Don't just keep it to yourself. So your employees might be super happy within their own bubble, but as an external person, I would like to have that sneak peek.
Completely aligned.
There are some points all of you have been touching upon, and I think are really interesting for our attendees. So Gonzalo, you mentioned the employer branding is not just an external thing. It's not just about attracting candidates in a company. It's also taking care of your employees. And it's a time where basically employees are your greatest brand ambassador, I would say, if you take care of them properly. And I think it touched also upon a point that Carolina, you mentioned. It's sometimes you don't always have like big means to do something. You're not always like a big size company. And that raises the question of employer branding on a budget, because oftentimes when people come to us, they're very concerned about the price, not just of a tool for them to recruit, but also of, how much they're going to have to invest in employer branding. They don't have a marketing team, they don't have a design team, they don't have like a career site, product team and everything. So they freak out a little bit. And that's why I like to make the link between employer branding on a budget, especially during those very dire times where people are trying to cut costs, and how you could actually align your company culture, how you take care of your employees and such, to actually make your brand shine.
So, Gonzalo, I know that you normally use lady first, but this question was directed to you. But the thing is, I just want to add something exactly on Reda points. It's not depending on the company, on the size of the company, whatever, but you have a possibility here is take care, become a caregiver if you can. And caring with the little tiny actions, in my opinion, it's mandatory. When I say this is, employer branding, you won't build it from one day to another one. So it takes time, it takes digestion, it takes consistency. And consistency becomes and starts with baby tiny steps. And tiny steps such as when you present your core values in a website, say what you mean it. Be really coherent what you believe in. Because if not, they look so beautiful, shiny, they're incredible. Even with design, they are amazing, beautiful, outstanding. But in the end of the day, they are just values that people won't realize it. They don't implement. They don't understand what it's there. It's not clear. It's not simple. And that's the second word. So uncertainty and simplicity. And the third one, to connect the dots, I would say it's caring. It's really important, honestly. Caring about exactly what people share, tell, and active listening to people. So if your employees are giving you feedback, hear it. It doesn't mean they are correct, but they have a different perspective. And that can be quite important and relevant.
Thank you, Carolina. Gonzalo, would you like to add something, or Joanna? So Gonzalo, you
Yeah.
brought up the employees. Let's start with you.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of
employees. Let's start with you.
yeah, no, I have a lot of things to share, but let me try to be concise. So regarding Rita, I understand your points, but I believe that the size of the company also impacts on the type of actions that you can do on employer branding. Just to give you a practical example and talking about budgets on employer branding, one thing that is not free, but it's free in terms of money, but not in terms of time, because time right now it's a currency that is everyone wants more time, but we just have 24 hours each, so that's the same for everyone, um, and for every company. But if you have 1,000 employees, it's completely different than only have 100. So we at Mercedes-Benz IO, we are more or less 400 people right now worldwide, and we in Portugal we decided that when the pandemic hits to speak with everyone individually, half an hour or 1 hour with a group of 15 people. So we speak with all of them in the next 2 weeks after the first lockdown to understand the pains that the people were living, what they need right now, because there is people with childs at home that it's really hard to work, I believe, because I don't have childs on my own home, but I believe it is. There is other people that are like alone at home and they feel really lonely and they just need to talk and speak a little bit with us. And there is other people that it's even better right now, they don't have to commute to work. So there is a lot of different type of people and we need to listen to them all. And sometimes we need to make an action, sometimes we just need to listen. So we don't need money for this, you just need time, but sometimes the time it's even more precious on it. And regarding Carolina's points, I believe it's important to listen, but you cannot only listen and do nothing. You need to care, like you said, because otherwise people will say, "Oh, we speak, they listen, but they don't do anything about it." And I think the action, it's the next point that is really important, because the companies that are passive, the companies that just listen and do nothing, they will fail, because people will start to talk about it. Maybe not now, but maybe in 2 or 3 years from now, people will complain about it. And we need to do actions to solve their problems if we believe that is a problem, or show the people that this is not a problem because X and Z. And maybe they are not a fit for us right now, or maybe they will become even a better fit because they understand our reasons and they understand our why. That is really important. And another thing regarding doing the employer branding for external purpose without budget, it's just being consistent on social media. You can share your ways of doing work. You can share a live story, you can share a blog post. So there is a lot of things right now with content where you can host a webinar and invite people from big companies or for smaller companies. So there is so many possibilities that you don't need money, you just need time and effort and connections, that the world, I think it's have a lot of possibilities to do employer branding rights. And to do employer branding rights, sometimes you need to do it wrongly, because you need to see what people care and what works in your brand and what doesn't work. So it's really important to try, fail, learn from it, and do it again.
But Gonzalo, you just mentioned and very clearly that uh, even though you believe that size is relevant somehow, but posting on social media is free, right? So all of us,
Exactly.
we have our social platforms. So let's think about it this way. Uh, Regardless of the size, I'm emphasizing it again, but still, let's just turn employees into advocates that feel comfortable sharing maybe even personal things about the company. They will just say, "Oh, look, I just had like very sweet cookies," and what the heck, you know? You never know. Whatever they may like. I think I would love to be able to encourage companies to even invest less, maybe take a step back and understand that maybe investing in filmmaking is not that relevant at this point. Maybe it's more important to make sure that everyone has smartphones. Well, in some cases, like all of us have smartphones, so they don't have to come from the company, but just create a more engaging experience for everyone. Like I can share some things that we do at Team Taylor, like baking sessions, for example. Every Friday, some colleagues would meet up, share recipes, bake, and then post almost, let's say, irrelevant content on LinkedIn, but it is relevant to those who will be joining us, because they can have a better understanding that, look, we are a business. Obviously every business is geared towards profit, so there's structural things, but a lot of feelings are involved. And once again, like Carolina says, humans are awesome. Like we need more of this human to human experience.
Can I add some
Absolutely.
ideas to your comments? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention because it's so clear for everyone in my head, but I work at Deloitte, as you said before, now for more than 1 year and a half, and as a large organization, and meaning that the member firm in Portugal and Angola, we are more than 3,000 employees. Is the lucky side of it is for someone like me or Gonzalo to have, if we like it, of course, to dedicate it 100% to employer branding. And I even have a team of 2 full-time employees dedicated to that, plus the collaboration of the marketing team, plus the collaboration of the people leaders, and so on and so on. But this is the most important, what I just said, the collaboration, the help, the alignment. So for any small organization that doesn't even have a responsible of marketing or responsible of people, the more important is the alignment, because you can be in a very large organization and very small, and you can do anything or nothing without alignment of vision of what we want to do. So a lot of things, as you all said, they are free or they are really, really, really low investment. But the most important to be successful is have the alignment between all the people, who we are, who we want to be, and have this alignment. And having this in mind, then the rest is the easiest part. I think this is really my experience, is the alignment between everyone.
Mhm.
I think all of us as humans are in search for our own identity throughout life. You know, we don't quite get stuck. So we will change from time to time, and same applies to companies and their identity. I think it is very important to, like you said, Joanna, first maybe do internal research.
Yes,
Uh,
I'd
yeah,
like to add some detail. Can I add about that? Because I know Carolina, she talked
Please do.
about the values and the website, and I
yeah,
want to give an example of what I believe.
Yes, John.
I think the most important, as we said, is that we are human-centric and that we hear our people. So the most important, even if we are a small organization or organization, is that what we have in our career website is true and it's authentic. So when we talk about the values or our employee value proposition, we need to hear our people. And that's the exercise we did at Deloitte last year. We did a survey to all our employees in all the geographies that we have. We have even people in Europe or other continents, technology or business, no matter the age or the working experience. And we asked 15 questions about what is Deloitte for them, Deloitte Portugal. Okay, so we could just bring the global message and put in a website in Portuguese, but that's not what we did. We just listen to our people. What is Deloitte for you? What is your aspiration? How do you feel about the brand, the employer brand? And according to all this data that we mix with external data about what students thought about Deloitte and other competitors in technology field, in the business field, and the leaders' vision, because we invited dozens of leaders' vision from Deloitte Portugal. We mix everything, okay? We analyze it. At the end, we had our employee value proposition. That, at the end, it's not far. It's really close to the global one. But the most important exercise is that we know this is us, and this is how we feel. That's how we feel when we work. So that's the truth. And when it's the truth, it's easiest to go on social media for people to believe it and to explore more about this message.
And I think it's about, I asked some millennials, some Z generation, what they considered about this idea of employer branding. And they shared with me 4 axes that I want to share with you. So for me, Carolina, to feel comfortable and to work within a company, the company needs to share its purpose. For us, it's not about paying check. It's not a paycheck. I don't want to spend the majority of my life as individual working for something that I do not believe and I do not understand. Second thing is I want flexibility. I want to work within an organization which is not controlling me, not controlling my time, but is controlling my quality and that's a different story. So it's controlling my, and I'm saying this, of course, it's just to each industry. Of course, it's not possible in a lot of companies, in a lot of industries, but where they are, and where there is this possibility of, as you said, Joanna, openness, and hear out and understanding and implementing a group and a set of questions and actions, that could be quite interesting. Within flexibility, one of the things that they shared was, I want to work within a company that allows me to study, to be curious, and to know more. And I love that. And I think that shares a lot about what nowadays the new workforce that we are going to have in 2025, 75% are going to be millennials working, and millennials and the Z generation. They have this ambition of adding value, of creating something. So we need to pay attention for it, because it's okay, we need to hear out our employees, but we need to understand as well what is happening outside. What are the major trends? What people are saying, like we are talking about AI. Okay, so I want to work in something, I want to create value, that I need to know that I'm not going to be replaced by a robot. The third thing is, I want to collaborate, to work within, to work as a mission-based expert. And this new governance model, it's incredible. There is this link, guys, who is here hearing out. We can share with you. It's a Davos from World Economic Forum in the last week. And it's really interesting to share how mission-based companies are raising and opening to the possibility of Joana, Gonçalo, and Carolina work with each other, despite the mother brand, where they are employees if they want to. And the last thing that they shared with me was, I need to work in something that allows me to innovate. Innovate in the sense of, I need to work with the company, and the communication, the external communication of each company needs to share that I'm open to co-create, to collaborate, to mingle in, to be in an environment and in a safe space that is a melting pot of knowledge. And this is so relevant, and we need to pay attention for it. Because I think one of the things that is happening as well is, we are talking about employee experience, we are talking about employee value proposition, we are talking about employer branding, but in the end of the day, we are talking about topics that have had different names 30 years ago. So what can we do differently? How can we listen more and hear more? And how can we implement easily within companies? Sorry, Reda. Yeah.
It's fine. I just have a very open question for all of us. What do you think is the best way to translate this so that future candidates can understand that company X has X values and their mission is this and that? So I don't want to be as primitive as just saying only a career side can showcase that, because I'm a very strong believer in what employees can do. So just getting back to Joanna's example, if they have identified what they like and who they are and where they're heading, that's the best way for people to start spreading the message. So word of mouth, I mean, this will never die in marketing, in employer branding, in any other segment of business. But I'm just trying to understand, and maybe so the audience has some more tangible takeaways, what could we suggest in terms of translation? So how do we translate that uniqueness into something that they can feel, touch, and make decisions based on that eventually?
Who wants to start?
I can start with maybe one or two examples really straight to the point. I think that should be represented during the recruiting process and also live internally. But if we are speaking about attracting, let's imagine that one of your values is being fast and deliver fast solutions. If you take 3 weeks to give an answer to a candidate, that doesn't represent that value. If you take 2 days, maybe that represents that value. So I would say that the recruiting process should mimic the culture that the company has. Otherwise, you are lying when you start to dating with someone. So I really like this analogy with dating and recruitment, because for me, it's have a lot of similarities, let's say, because you are meeting someone. And you are not meeting the company, you are meeting someone, because an interview it's with one or two people. So you are not meeting a whole company, you are just meeting one or two people. So that's really important, because that will show the values of the company. If you start an interview late, that will show that you maybe be late for meetings in the future. So these type of behaviors that are really simple, but the small details are really, really important when someone needs to make a life decision. And when people are thinking about changing jobs nowadays, they are thinking about moving their life to another work environment. And right now, if I am in a company, I know the people face to face. If I move to another company, I don't know them face to face, and probably I won't meet them anytime soon. So it's really important to be certain of that choice and to give practical examples during the recruitment process. And the same thing happens when the people work internally. So this is really depending on the values that you have as a company, but that needs to reflect in behaviors and not just chit chat and videos and nice wording. I think it's much more important that people know the values, agree with the values, and live the values during all the phases in a company.
I'm super glad that you mentioned this, Gonzalo. It's been a year since I moved here, and I'm still receiving replies from companies that I applied to months ago. So I think that is what we are talking about. At the end of the day, we should all practice what we preach, speak,
Exactly.
go on, and just never miss chances, because obviously I will never be joining those companies.
I
I
think
just want to say something. It's like about your stellar candidate experience. I think candidate experience as well is something to take into account when you're working on your employer brand. You all mentioned really important things about being humans. We're people. We need to cater to, to human situations. For recruiters, sometimes it can be, you're doing your job and you're in the moment and you have sometimes to meet KPIs. But what I always recommend the people I speak with or my clients is to turn off the recruiter switch for a minute, the professional switch, and just get back to the basics. Remember, you've been a candidate once upon a time. Remember all the things you would have liked to see, like for instance what you mentioned, Carolina, sense of purpose, innovation, collaboration, all these things. Remember that your employer brand is both about your employee well-being, but also treating your candidate like the way you're going to treat them afterwards in the company. It's not just attracting them in and then forgetting
And Samantha, one thing that you mentioned quite interesting, like mental health, for example. During the last year, one company and one finance institution that I used to work with, they shared with me for the first 6 months, so from March onwards, last year, they had a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And people were invited if they wanted and if they were willing to go. For 6 months, she had only 3 patients. And then one of the patients shared his story. So he shared with everyone that he was receiving therapy and he was loving, and it was a place where he could be himself. And this is really interesting. The following month, she received more than 30 patients. So if you don't speak up, you cannot expect that people take it for granted, in the sense of, you can have a psychologist, but if people are criticizing you for going there, for example, and if there is not that sense of belonging, and that you cannot share yourself, that you cannot share your emotions, that you are outbursting, that you hate the fact that you have children around, because you're not meant to be teacher, and that's okay. You're not expected to. You are a mom. You are a professional, but you are not a teacher, and that's okay. That's beautiful, because nobody was prepared for it. That being said, one thing that is really beautiful is that company didn't take or didn't fire the psychologist. They were patient. And patience within the times of uncertainty as we are living in, and we've been living for Portuguese, we are really welcome to the uncertainty. We are okay with it. But nowadays is worldwide. So that sense of, okay, I can wait for people to have their time, their own time, that's beautiful. And for me, it's an example of an activity, of an action that made people feel more comfortable and safe and trustworthy connections and relationships within their workplace.
Thank you very much, Carolina. We are going to tackle one question here before we actually tackle the questions from the attendees. What would you say is today's technology impact on recruiters and candidates?
So I can definitely add a few points here, and following up on what Gonzalo said, that will make perfect sense. At the end of the day, candidate experience is a subcategory. Okay, so employer branding is an umbrella for all of these topics. When it comes to technology, I think we have this immense potential to speed it up so the process is smooth and seamless. I mean, let's start with very basics. Is our recruitment process mobile friendly, for example? Are we in the right place to accommodate for people who are always on the go? Actually, given our own research, we figured out that people who are willing to switch, like change jobs, they're likely to apply when they're at work, on the way to work, or in the bathroom, as crazy as it sounds. So what does it mean? What does it mean? If you really want to reach and attract candidates, you have to be as simple as possible, like few touch points. Like I am a huge believer in not having CVs anymore, because most senior people will probably not even update their CVs. So maybe just collect key questions that you think would help you align with your company, with the values that you're sharing with future candidates, and screen them efficiently. Like Gonzalo said, let's not take a long time to get back to candidates. Let's utilize the technology that is in place right now to be able to respond as fast as possible. So that's one. Also, moving on to a career site, for example, I've seen a lot of examples where companies create a nice looking career page, and obviously it's their baby, so they think it's really important. I mean, you would never say that, oh, my baby is ugly. So they just let it sit there for a while, whereas I think technology allows us to have more flexible career sites nowadays. So keep it as a living organism and just add more information as you go. It can be as often as, like, as frequent as weekly. Maybe you just hired more people that represent different tribes of people, so people can see themselves there and just, have some sense of belonging, generate sense of belonging. So that is very important. And diversify. I would also stress the importance of having employer branding, not only for the entire company as a whole, but also very specific departments. Exactly. So it's like having different hubs across the company. Myself, I'm a salesperson, I don't worry about other departments. When if I ever happen to search for another company, I will most definitely want to understand their sales character, who works there, maybe see the faces, because I would love to reach out to them on LinkedIn, and many more things. So technology really allows us to do so. At least Team Taylor does, but we're not here to share much beyond that. We can take it on the side, but technology is everything. I mean, you can put certain touch points and then engage when it's necessary. When you have an interview, when you're face to face with a candidate, you can just be all in, you don't even have to take as many notes, just have the eye contact and enjoy the human.
Thank you very much, Riada. Keeping track of the time, it's now basically time to dive into some of the attendees' questions. So you guys ready?
Yes.
Let's do this.
We are.
All right. So we're going to start with Emily Heikira, who is asking, when it comes to employee advocacy, how can the employer promote this behavior?
So Can I answer? Or
Go ahead,
Marina, Gonçalo?
Joanna.
Okay, so that's the free part of the employer branding. Okay, it doesn't require a huge investment. I think more and more companies are doing this, creating their like ambassadors program and empowering employees to be their ambassadors. The more important is to feel who is willing to do that and who is at ease with LinkedIn or other social media tools that are applicable to the audience. Okay, we want to spread the word and we want to talk with. So maybe the company can also share some workshops about best tips and how to make sure that at least your own speech don't goes against completely a corporate speech, let's say, that you have the right information about, as we said, the values, our goals, our purpose as a company, the vision, the products or the case studies we are working on, and then just let people do their own connections and relate to each other online and publish what they want. So maybe you can have a group in a WhatsApp, or maybe you have some regular meetings during the year so you can catch up and exchange experience between all of them. And maybe you can divide them into departments or categories, as Reda said, the salespeople and the other ones, so they can match their subjects of interest. Okay, and they can talk more about their subject of expertise and what they like, and also the lifestyle they enjoy, because we are all different and we don't have all the same lifestyle. And that's also important. People, they want to know about your personal not personal life, but the way your work enable you to live your personal life, and and that you have a life outside a job. So that's very important too.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm going to tackle another question here. It is from Anonymous, and this is not the hackers group. How do you measure your employer branding efforts, and what KPIs do you recommend to start with? Anyone wants to take that one? I see, Gonçalo, you're lifting your heads up to the ceiling.
You want to start, Gonçalo? Then I can
Yeah, I was thinking, because I'm not directly involved with the KPIs parts, but I believe that orientation, it's one of the components that you should measure to see how much turnover you have or you don't have, and also how much time you take to fulfill positions successfully, and see if they are coming from channels, so job boards, social media, etc., or if they are coming from the source of your recruiters, or if they are coming from referrals. That's really important to see where they are coming from, and see if the employer branding are helping those parts on getting more candidates, or if we are not investing nothing on those areas and they are coming candidates anyway.
Gonçalo, just adding something, and Samantha, if I can. When you're talking about metrics, and Joanna can give you a lot of examples, I think we should as well relate metrics, employer branding and the metrics with evaluation. So we cannot continue to evaluate people once a year. Doesn't make any sense. Come on, guys. Honestly, I couldn't remember what I ate last week. So forget it. But I need to understand that if I evaluate my people, I'm listening to them and I'm learning with them, and I'm increasing the knowledge about that human, because there is something here that, and I've seen some questions here in the Q&A, quite interesting ones. And there's something here that we need to tackle when we are talking about metrics. We are talking about, in the end of the day, we are talking about things that will improve your business/reputation, because people will feel comfortable. And that's the thing, people will feel that they belong to something bigger than themselves. And this is beautiful, because we are living nowadays in a situation that a lot of companies are now making leaner decisions. And even though you can make it with humanity, and that's the secret, humanize metrics as well. So humanizing metrics is, of course, there is the tangible metrics that all of us we need. We need the return on assets and on equity in the end of the day. But as well, we need to understand why are exit interviews? Why are you leaving? Which things would you do differently here? If I was your best friend, how would you translate this company culture in one sentence? And that's so smart. It's intangible. but it's so smart. Sorry, Joanna, bring it on.
No, I completely agree with Carolina, but maybe just to add on some other ones that Gonzalo mentioned also, the tangible ones and the most current ones on the business side, is that the metrics depend on your goals. Okay, I've heard, some of these positions that are more focused on diversity and inclusion, some are focused on attraction and recruitment, some are focused on the people experience or employee experience. So depending on those goals, you need to adapt, of course, your metrics. So some of them have been already mentioned by Gonzalo, but of course there can be other ones. Okay, so there was a question at the beginning that was what employer branding is not. So this is not a Thermomix receipt. I always say this. It's not the same receipt for everyone. So depending on your organization, your goals, and the way you want to enhance your challenge and overcome those challenges, you need to adapt your metrics. Okay, so there's not right or wrong. It depends. It depends on the situation. So other metrics could be also, as Gonzalo said, the source of recruitment, the referrals. It can be the social media engagement of your employees. Are they sharing content? Are they speaking up on social media? It can be, of course, the marketing metrics of video views and PR and blog views and so on. But also it can be, as Gonzalo said, retention. Maybe you have a survey. It can be a weekly survey, an annual survey, no matter. And then you monitor how your people are feeling. Okay, so depending on the program you launch, you'll be having different metrics.
Joanna and Samantha, there is here an interesting question from Ricardo. Can I just go ahead?
I was going to read it actually.
Yeah, Ricardo, and I know him, and I know exactly what he's saying because he's incredible. Ricardo, I'm going just to read out, how could we balance the urgency in filling a vacancy for a new project with the required patience, beautiful, for the right employee, or provide him, her, the missing skills? Incredible. Loved it. Honestly, Ricardo, I'm going to give you two examples. The first one is, please be clear on what you're looking for. Don't say, look, guys, you know what? You can be a techie. I love this. A developer. You need to speak 1,000 languages in techie world, and as well in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, if you can. That would be incredible. And Italian as well. But I offer you the minimum wage. So be straightforward, be clear. And honestly, another thing is put your money where your mouth is. Share the salaries, share at least the range. It's something that the new luxury, besides authenticity, the new luxury is how transparent are you as a company. Show me where you are putting your money. Because in the end of the day, of course, I want that all the shareholders receive a lot of money. Because if you receive, I will keep my job. But the thing is, in the end of the day, is I need to understand if I fit. So besides the job description, please share what you believe in, because that will make it easier. If I resonate with that, maybe I will apply, maybe I won't. Because if you do not share, the thing that prevails all the time in the end of the day is word of mouth. So I'm going to check in my LinkedIn if I know anyone who has been working within your company, or I'm going to recheck if I would join, because I'm going to understand if you control me, if I will have autonomy. So that question for me, it's like, be simple, really simple and straightforward, transparent. Second thing is share as well your bio. So if you think about the company as an individual, share your bio. And the second question related with this topic is, in New Zealand, Australia, UK, and US, a lot of companies are now adopting the concept of not putting names in resumes, not putting your address. Because in Portugal, if you see an address from a slum, I love this is insane, that person for sure is unprivileged. And that doesn't make any sense. So there are areas that there are some prejudice on it. So take the name, take the picture, take the gender if you want, no problem. I'm a woman, I don't care, but take it if you prefer. And show as well, be transparent as a candidate. That could be really interesting. And companies need to adjust to that, but universities as well.
There's something else very simple to add, and thanks, Ricardo, for a definitely very good question.
Yep.
Uh, just a hypothetical question here. Do you think that this urgency caught you off guard? Because I don't quite see having this sudden urge. Like imagine if you're preparing for a project or you're planning to sell, you understand that there might be a certain need for more employees and so on and so on. So my genuine advice would be to never take idle times for granted. And during idle times is when you can actually shape your employer brand, because it will be very difficult to compete if you compete based on the wage. You will reach the ceiling. You will not be able to spend more on your employees either way. So it's not only the money part. I think we underestimate how much young people are into this sustainability and purpose and value and so on. Many people would be willing to work for less. I'm talking about monetary forms, but be recognized, be appreciated, and so on. So my advice would be to really take the time to define your employer brand when you can do so. Like just likewise, you're prepping for projects. Spend a little bit on time on employer branding.
Yeah. Samantha, you are saying
Thank you,
that the
Liada.
time is
Any
up.
last words?
Yeah.
No, I can just reinforce what you said. And Ricardo, the employer brand is the key. So you can warm up all the kind of, let's say, profiles you think you may need in the future. You have a consistent and frequent conversation about what you do, what you are, and so on. And when you have a specific urgent project, you already have some people who are involved with your brand. You are getting in touch with your your colleagues, your professionals, and it will be easier to implement the reskilling part and hire that person. Otherwise it will be real a recruitment effort, and it will be more difficult. But Gonzalo is the expert of recruitment, so you can end now in your comment.
No, I believe that is it all. I think spending time rethinking twice your employer branding, it's a key before making any hires, because the worst thing that can happen is you hire someone and after 3 months you discover that it's not a fit, not only for you, but especially for that person, because they changed their life because of you and you couldn't give what you promised. So I completely agree with Rita that it's really, really important to think first, act later, and especially nowadays, it's super key. It was super interesting to be here in this panel. I think we need much more time to approach this topic, but it was a pleasure to be here.
And Samantha, just to the last words, I have two things. So first, just let me tell you that I love the fact that Gary raised an incredible question, and my last words are going to try to fulfill that gap that we have here. When we are talking about employer branding, we are talking about internal/external reputation. When we are talking about sustainability, and let's make it sustainable growth, we are talking about environment, social, and governance. So any kind of strategy that nowadays companies need to have, because they are now living in an era that all of us, we know what is climate change, but we also know the impact that is not about us, is about next generations. So of course, companies need to within and embed sustainability within their core values, strategy, mission, vision, actions, because it cannot be makeup as well. So I would say that they are completely related. And to end, there is this sentence that I love from Goethe that shares this: people only hear what they understand. And I think we need to make it more clear.
That's very spot on, Carolina. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much,
Thank you.
everyone, every single one of you, for this very, very interesting chat. It was lovely to be here with you. Reda,
I just would like
last.
to say something, that we did leave some questions behind.
Yes.
So we really apologize for not having the time to get back to all of you, but please feel free to reach out. Absolutely, yes. And I guess I just feel like sharing this very personal wish for you guys. I would really like to encourage you to never overthink, because overthinking shuts your intuition up. So when you start building your employer brand, share what you have. Make sure it's vulnerable, sorry. Like that's what leadership is to most of us, except that some of us are a bit more scared of sharing it, like saying it out loud.
Thank you so much to everybody for joining, panelists and attendees alike. We will send you the recording of this session and an email with the contact of everyone, so you can connect with us on LinkedIn and ask more questions if you would like to. Thank you to all of you. Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Take care.